So my name is Chris Karson. I'm a partner at Metro City Property Group, as well as one of the principal partners of Northern Alliance. And my focus and forte, you could say, is land development and commercial realty. So I lead our team here for commercial initiatives, large acquisitions of land, industrial and commercial multifamily property. But I've been in construction and land development from a very young age, from most of my life. I'm better part of 25 years I've been in construction. Was a part of a large scale family construction company, and I got a lot of my civil construction experience, starting at a young age, working in sand pits and quarries and building roads and engineering materials, in sand and gravel, and building large scale buildings and GCing big projects. Uh, Went into realty about 15 years ago, and that's when I married the two careers together, land development and realty. So um, I've since uh, personally developed land, quite a few apartment buildings under general contracting myself and my teams or companies that I've led, and all of which have been created under limited partnership agreements. So just qualifying myself a little bit here and how I'm able to speak to the subject, and hopefully I can bring some light to all of you, and how limited partnership agreements might benefit your business. So I'll
You send me all these. I don't even know the volume on it yet.
let's I'm gonna keep it pretty casual today. So ask questions whenever they come up. I don't have a strict policy of holding things to the end. I can be kind of wordy at times, so I welcome people interjecting and breaking up the flow so we can have a bit of personal connection. But I'll just get started. I wanted to talk about limited partnerships today to all of you, and I'll try to keep it tied into realty. And I think there's a great opportunity for realtors to, in understanding the limited partnership, to put together consortiums, groups of people looking to purchase, fund, finance large scale, either multifamily income properties or any type of investment property or development project. It In a nutshell, I'll try to keep it simple without getting real deep into the weeds, because obviously there's intricacies that feel free to ask questions on. But the limited partnership agreement is there's all sorts of different types of partnerships. There could be joint ventures. There's with different types of ownership. The limited partnership agreement is one that I've used time and again. I feel is very versatile, and it allows for the versatility of different unit share classes, to really set permissions about different types of partners within the agreement. But it's basically a partnership agreement that it acts like a corporation. If you put together a limited partnership agreement, that you're basically forming a corporation, and the limited partnership agreement outlines the rules, regulations of the corporation for a specific venture. Um, like I said, we'll probably focus on uses like purchasing income producing properties for investment, or a development project, I'll get into one that I'm currently working on. I'll share with you a little bit later and discuss how it works. But this limited partnership agreement, this corporation that we form to put together a group of people, it allows people obviously to pool their money and purchase larger scale properties and projects that they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford on their own. And something that unlocks, obviously, when you get larger scale projects, you end up with more economies of scale. So, the return on investment on a triplex is much different than the return on investment in a 20 or a 30 unit building. And when you've got more doors under one roof, you end up with more return per dollar because you've got economies of scale. Instead of going out and buying 10 different triplexes, I'd always recommend to buy one 30 unit building. You get this economies of scale with one set of exterior walls, one set of exterior windows, one roof, one set of property taxes, one set of maintenance bills, and you really can outperform a lot of smaller properties together when you buy larger scale properties. So if you put a group of people together that invest the sum of their cash to buy these larger projects, you can often outperform buying a bunch of individual properties on your own. And something that's interesting from a realty perspective is if you are, and you are realtors, if you're a realtor and you have the knowledge of the limited partnership agreement and you have the expertise in whatever field it is that you choose to put effort towards, or put a group together to purchase something, you can carve out a piece for yourself, perhaps with little or no money down, or less money than the rest of the group, because you're the one that starts the venture, and you agree to manage the group, and you put together the opportunity and ask other people to invest with you. And if you're organized and understand the limited partnership agreement, that might be all it takes for you to identify some opportunity and then go and find people to invest with you on this venture. So some key points in the limited partnership agreement that I'd like to discuss. I touched on it before. There can be different classes of units. Most people think of them as shares in a corporation. When we're talking about limited partnership agreements, we actually talk about units. So I'll use shares and units synonymously often. So I think more people understand shares and share class. But what you do in a limited partnership agreement, because there's always more than one person involved, it's a partnership, so it's not obviously a sole proprietorship or a corporation owned by one person. There's multiple people involved, and there's different permissions granted for each share class. There's two key roles in the partnership. You've got a general partner and a limited partner. So obviously the title of the whole document and the whole partnership agreement, it's a limited partnership agreement. So you've often got the general partner who's the primary and putting the partnership together. They're labeled as the general partner, and you've got, let's call them subsidiary partners or limited partners, and you can assign different classes to these partnership share units, the limited partner and the general partner. And the general partner will have different permissions than the limited partner. The general partner, generally, the way that I do it is I assign all of the voting rights to the general partner. you can assign certain voting rights to the limited partners and certain voting rights to the general partner. But typically speaking, I'm running development projects where I'm the expert, I'm the primary. My limited partners are injecting cash and capital. And typically I want to remain in control of the project because it's my expertise. My other partners have other expertise. They may have gotten their money in different fields, different businesses. And I like to remain in control of the projects. So I, as the general partner, usually assign all the voting rights of the project to the general partner, and I'll assign a certain amount of general partnership units to myself. I may also inject money into the project where I also participate on the limited partnership side if I want to also invest. But there's obviously different ways of setting these up. Some of which could be no money down. I've done a lot of these a limited partnership agreements where I'm building a 24 unit apartment. I'm, as the general partner, and putting no money in. I'm performing all of the work, call it sweat equity, and the limited partners are putting in all of the working capital. So, but you can really assign whatever partnership splits that you can dream up to the agreement. Obviously, you have to be able to sell this to limited partners and convince them that whatever you're offering in the in the agreement is valuable enough for them to invest with you. So I having a particular experience and expertise in land development, I put in my sweat equity, and they understand that I'm going to competently run the project and get it through from start to finish. So, but you could, without having let's kind of switch away from development, because not everybody has that construction and land development experience. But let's say you're just putting together a group to purchase an apartment building. That's something that's fairly typical. People putting together consortiums, groups of people to pool their money and buy an apartment building. You, as the real estate professional, understanding the income approach to value and perhaps different methods of funding apartment buildings and getting good rates of return, perhaps identifying opportunity where you can purchase a building and there's upside, that you can improve it and create value. You, as the real estate professional, bringing in this knowledge and expertise, have the opportunity to perhaps tie up a building conditionally and work towards putting together a limited partnership where you, as the head of the general partner in the agreement, perform certain duties, and you may be able to sell it to investors and carve out a percentage for yourself with either little or no money down. There's obviously it's a little bit easier, and often limited partners like to see what we call skin in the game. A lot of different groups will want you to have some money invested, but if you put together a solid case and identify a really good opportunity and carve out a fair stake for yourself, you might be able to do this with no money down. These are common. Limited partnerships are common in the workplace. There's a lot of big groups that come together and do this. So anyway, the limited partnership agreement is perhaps one of the most useful and versatile tools. It's the best one that I've found to put together these groups. I'll set out some of the permissions and different things that are outlined in the partnership agreement. Obviously, at the beginning, when you create the agreement, you put together a list of the limited partners, and it can be an unlimited amount. of people. There's no limit to, it can be two people, it could be one person as a general and one person as a limited partner, outlining different permissions of each partner, or it can be 100 people or 1,000 people. And there could be one person as a general partner and the rest all as limited partnerships with limited permissions. But out on the onset of and we call it LP. I'll start paraphrasing so that I can speed up a little bit, but we call a limited partnership agreement. We usually refer it as the LP. So in the LP, it's going to outline capital contributions. It'll outline all the partners, their individual capital contributions, and that will, and that will often dictate everybody's proportionate share of the LP itself. So generally, you would outline, if there's a certain amount of dollars injected, all those capital contributors of the LP, they have a proportionate share of ownership that comes along with their individual investment. So the LP will also outline management and control. There can be a management contract attached to the LP that states who's going to manage the LP, who's going to manage the asset, and how. And this is put in place often right with the creation of the LP. Profit distributions are outlined. You can set anything you can dream up in the commercial world. You can write down in an agreement. So you can set up different profit distributions at the beginning, and the LP can outline how profits are going to be distributed. They can be on dividends annually, or you can have annual meetings to discuss amongst the partners how dividends are going to be divided, when they're going to be paid out. You can as the GP write in that the GP has the sole right to determine when distributions happen. I always like to include the limited partners in some decisions along the way, as long as I maintain control of most of the progress. But it's easier to bring a party together if they've got some type of control. But Lucas, you got a question? Thank you for stopping me. You can just speak anytime.
No, so what you're going through right now is, when you're talking to these LPs, how you're selling it to them in the sense that, okay, here, we have this project coming, or this opportunity, we'll say. How do you explain to them potential good aspects from a tax benefit point of view? Also, how you what you're explaining about how you would pay out those dividends or shares or whatever it is. That's a question of how you explain that to them.
The first thing I do in any venture, whether it's buying an apartment building, building an apartment building, is I'm setting out what is called a pro forma, and I'm outlining basically the revenues and the expenses, and I'm putting all of the financial particulars down on paper and showing how the project is going to perform. So what it's going to cost, how it's constructed or purchased, all the fees, and then how it's going to perform each year. Obviously, that's going to come along with a capitalization rate if it's an income property, and an annual rate of return on the investment. And I'm basically outlining all the dollars in the pro forma, and then based on what we're doing, I'll outline what we intend, how and what we intend to distribute the profits. So it's different for different projects. So let's say we've got an income producing asset like an apartment building. I might say, okay, this project's netting $100,000 a year, and we are going to distribute 75%. We're going to annually on year end, we're going to distribute 75% of the profits, keeping 25% of the profits in a fund to manage the building, or some type of a reserve fund, or what have you. But I'll outline the distributions up front. I often have also not outlined exactly how much we're going to distribute from day one. And I've said, okay, at the end of the year, we're going to hold a shareholder meeting, and all the shareholders are going to decide amongst themselves what we need to distribute, keeping in mind the general partner has the ability to override that decision if we feel that there's capital contributions that need to be made, or a certain amount of money that needs to be kept within the LP's bank account for whatever purpose. So
Understood.
outlining it with a pro forma is instrumental in convincing people what they're investing in. They need to know, obviously, how much money they're putting in and how much their return is going to be. If it's an apartment building, don't forget to include the appreciation. Some of these ventures just cover themselves every year, and people don't make money annually, but the building's paying itself off, and it's paying down a mortgage, increasing equity and appreciation. And obviously, if it's appreciating at 5% every year, 4 or 5%, and you're paying down the principal of a mortgage, well, that 4 or 5% is on the entire value of the property, not what you guys have put as a down payment. So it's always greater. A lot of these buildings, between annual profits and appreciation, are going to return 20+% on people's initial money that they've put out, even after all the taxes are paid and the accounting's been done, and the building's performing. So that, I don't know if that spoke exactly to your question, but it's really about outlining all the dollars up front and how you're going to perform.
So having a solid background in like doing a deal check, doing pro formas is key on how to sell it to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. You basically need to answer all the questions up front. I've found in the past, if people can poke holes in anything and there's questions left on the table, for you to say, oh, we'll figure it out later, or don't worry about it, or whatever, you lose confidence right away. Everything has to be done up front before you approach the LP group of investors. And you might be able to, if you've got people that are close to you that really trust what you're doing, and they understand it well, you could attract some investors, obviously, without having every nut and bolt locked down and all the dollars and cents figured out. But the better you can make your pro forma, and the more solid you can speak to it and identify the potential revenues and their comparables, all the evidence of why this is going to succeed, the better chance you're going to have to convince people that to believe you and trust you to lead this LP as a general, if that's
and I did have another question as far as being the general there. It's do you have a lot more liability, in a sense that if something does happen, you're going to be held more liable than any LP, right? Because they're
correct. The liability falls on the general.
Yeah, so you don't want to mess around.
No, no, you're not, it's a great point. I was gonna bring it up later. I'm glad you did. The liability falls on the general partner. Now, the limited partners will have liability in, their assets and their share equally in the funds that are in the project. But if there's additional liability, it falls on the GP.
Okay. So if, like, for example, if something were to go south and a huge unexpected cost arise, or there's some kind of lawsuit, like
Yeah,
it as,
costs are likely going to be shared equally. Like if something comes up and the roof needs to be fixed, the unexpected costs doesn't fall on the GP. Like everybody's in
okay,
the same boat, and the GP doesn't have to take more money out of their pocket than anybody else. It's a proportionate share, and everybody would have to decide where extra funds come from. You can always redistribute shares after, let's say you've got a surprise of $200,000 roof that needs to be done and something damage happens or whatever, and insurance isn't covering it for whatever odd reason. You could figure out, okay, well, we'll either bring in other LP partners to make up the difference and water down the shares, or we can all, put the proportionate amount in to maintain our share structure and deal with it. Extras don't fall all on the GP, but the liability of like you said, like a lawsuit, the GP is going to have more weight put on them, let's say. And it like if there's a lawsuit and a court case, there's all sorts of things that can arise. That the answer to that is not as cut and dry as it might sound. Like all liability falls on the GP. That's not necessarily the case. If there's LP partners that let's say there was some illegal activity happening and some fraud or whatever, but there were certain LP partners that were participating somehow. Just because there's a general doesn't mean that that it's a carte blanche for the general, everything to be put on them. But let's say that they have more liability and all the onus is going to start with them. They're going to be the ones having to put together all the documentation for court cases or what have you. The financing is everything's going to flow through the general partner. So there's definitely more weight, definitely more liability on the general partner.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So obviously with any partnership, there's different stages. So far, we've talked about the entry, how everybody is getting together, the permissions of each unit or class, unit or share class, and people's roles and liabilities. The LP will also at its onset when it's created outline exit strategies or dissolution. The LP is not an entity that will survive forever. In theory, it could. You could keep amending it forever and ever and ever, but in any state, the LP is going to set out it's the exit strategy and dissolution, how partners get out. Um, it could even have a timeline as to when this LP is created, for 3 years, for 5 years, and there will be a meeting that happens 6 months before the targeted end of the LP, for all the partners to vote on what happens, whether they keep going. You can amend it to keep going forever, but in any one state, it is outlined what the exit strategies are, what the dissolutions are, how the LP is to be wound down, all the distributions that happen. Everything is outlined from start to finish on how, why, who, what, where, when, and why the LP is being created, and what it's intended for. The vehicle is intended to make money and then eventually exit. Nobody lives forever, so you can outline different parameters as to what happens with the partnership in all sorts of different cases. In the event of death, you know, how share classes and permissions are passed on to estates. Everything and anything can be outlined, and perhaps the most important portion of this that I haven't mentioned yet is the LP should be governed along by the GP. The LP should be governed by a competent lawyer that is working alongside you to create and to manage this limited partnership, you know, through the agreement. But the lawyers are instrumental in protecting your interests, protecting the LP's interests, the limited partners, the general partner. You know, pay a good lawyer. They're going to be instrumental in making sure that you're structuring this properly and everybody's, you know, above board and it's performing as intended. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about I'll introduce a project to you that I'm currently working on, and I'll show you how I use the LP, and perhaps that'll prompt some more questions. I think that I've gotten through quite a bit of the nuts and bolts of the LP, the structure, how it works. A lot of the limited partners are often passive. You can set permissions initially as a GP, as a general partner, in how often you're going to report to the limited partners, what you're going to report to the limited partners. You may not report to the limited partners. They might be totally silent and you're just running the show. You know, or you can report to them quarterly with progress and or hold. You're going to want to hold at the very least annual meetings, and the lawyers are all going to, you know, tell you that you've got to hold annual meetings to keep everybody updated. I'm very transparent in my LPs. I like everybody to know what's happening. I typically don't have a ton of partners. The most partners I've you know, typically have in an LP are maybe 10 limited partners. I'm working on a project right now. There may be a few more, but it's usually not too many for me to, you know, for them to not be able to reach out to me and discuss the project at any time. I like to make sure that they're all happy and all the limited partners are happy and understand where we are and where we're going. So, but let me outline a project that I'm working on right now. And feel free to ask questions. And this project is a development that I'm working on in Kempville. So I'm going to share my screen here, and going to. Does everybody know where Kempville is? Just quickly, so I know you're all seeing my screen. Can everybody see this map? Thumbs up from Lucas. So obviously we're in Ottawa here, and this is I'll zoom out to at least the 401 corridor. So Kempville's in between Ottawa and the 401 corridor, right along a major highway, which is the 416. And I did not mean to zoom in on Johnstown. I'll head over to Kempville here, but it's a growing, bustling community. North Grenville is the municipality, and I've got a project here. We are building 108 stacked townhouse units. It's under the condominium. It's under governance of a condominium. So we're building stacked townhouses. This is Kempville, the major highway 416 that runs obviously in between Ottawa and the 401. And Kempville is becoming a major hub. We're 15 minutes south of the city of Ottawa, 20 minutes into the core of Barhaven, so it's becoming a commuter town. Our project is right off of Highway 43. So you come in, you'll see a whole bunch of brand new large scale commercial stores. There's a large development here, from large Canadian Tires to Walmart superstores, large restaurants. It's becoming a huge hub, and I'm excited about it. So we have an infill project. Basically, come down 43 and directly off of Highway 43. This empty field right here, if you can all see my screen, is where we're building 108 stacked townhouse units, right in behind the old Kempville Mall. So there's walkability to stores and amenities, and we're right in the path of progress. Across the street from us, Mattamy is going to be building thousands of units. Urbandale is going to be building in another field. There's another developer that's building rental units and retirement units directly across from us. So we're right in the path of progress. I'm excited about it, and we've actually just opened our second round of funding. I've structured this LP in 2 rounds of funding. The first round involved the land and the application for the site plan approval. So we've put together all the site plan approval documents. We've put together all the architectural files, as well as a lot of the engineering. So you'll see some of my floor plans and roof structure, floor plans. Everything has been completed to make a full site plan application. This is the site plan from an overhead view. Excuse me, this is an old architectural set. This is the building, or the buildings. There will be 9 12-unit buildings, and this is probably the best thing to look at. Each of these are each one of these buildings is 12 units. So we'll be building these units, and they will be available for sale. Each unit will be, individually for sale. I suspect that some investors will purchase the units for rentals. We're going to try to have the units qualify for the new CMHC MLI Select program, which, if any of you know what that's about, investors might buy, all blocks of buildings or a whole building. Lucas had his hand up again. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention there.
No, it's okay. I mean, I could ask you a bunch.
Inject and ask away.
I could ask you a bunch. So I guess since you just left off with CMHC MLI Select, because that's one I think, maybe myself, I just started really learning about it quite a bit and doing some digging in on that. Can you, from your perspective, because you have a lot of experience with it, how can you utilize that to help promote it to your investors?
I mean, there's going to be a whole different training, let's say, that should arise for us talking about the MLI Select program, and feel free to reach out to me directly.
Okay.
Anytime.
I know it's a lot.
Yeah,
I know it's a lot. So
because it's huge, but in a nutshell, I was building apartments before, and about around the time of COVID, the prices, the cost to build and the cost to finance rose to a point where these apartment projects were no longer let's say as feasible to build. If you're building with all your own money, that's fine. But the atmosphere of how much it costs to borrow money and how much it costs to build, my investors were used to, just for an example, my investors were used to getting their money back in their pocket at takeout financing when we completed a building, and continue to cash flow every year with their money back in their pocket, let's say year two, once a building was complete. Acquire the land, build a building, fill it with tenants, and get takeout financing. Everybody gets their money back in their pocket and we cash flow. About 4 years ago, that stopped. That atmosphere for that stopped. The cost to build became too expensive. The cost to borrow was expensive, and that matrix shifted. With the loan to value, I couldn't get all my investors' money back in their pocket, and the buildings weren't cash flowing. Now, I saw this coming, and I didn't start any buildings under this atmosphere, so I haven't had any projects that didn't go well. All my investors, we've maintained our integrity and made some good moves. So, but there has been people building over the last few years that just had to, for because they were carrying land or what have you. And anyway, it's been very difficult atmosphere to build apartments with that in mind. The MLI Select program was created by CMHC, and it's them obviously insuring mortgages that for buildings that qualify for at a certain criteria. There's a point system. I won't get into it too much, but it's based on affordability, accessibility, efficiency, things like this. If your building qualifies under this point system, you can borrow as much as 95% loan to value, which is crazy. So you can obviously you can invest in these things with like 5% down at best if the building qualifies for absolutely everything. And you can amortize the loan over 50 years, which brings even though you're borrowing a lot more money, a 50-year amortization rate at 4% right now, by the way, brings your cost of financing, monthly financing, down significantly, and allows these buildings to now cash flow. And they've also got rates of construction. You can rope construction financing into CMHC loans, and they're outperforming all the other lender products with how much you can finance, the amount of loan to cost that you can finance, as well as the rate. So we're aiming to see, and we're pivoting right now. Like, this is fairly new programs. I'm going through it at the same time as everyone else, and getting to know them. But we're pivoting, and I think that my buildings are going to qualify for a certain portion of it. So should be able to have investors, if they want, purchase these buildings under the MLI Select program. But either way, these are I think solid, affordable assets that are going to sell one way or another. I can't discount them too much, because big investors are going to buy blocks of them. So whether or not they're sold individually to the end user or investors, it's just kind of a bonus if I design them to meet MLI Select criteria.
For sure. Congrats on that, by the way. That's a big one.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an exciting project. I like projects with scale. I'm applying for this build, and what I was talking to you about before with economies of scale. I'm applying for this build, and I make one application. I've got one piece of land, make one application, and I'm building 9 different buildings. So you can see the benefit of an LP. If I were to go and build just one of these buildings somewhere else, because that's what I can afford to do on my own, obviously putting a consortium or a group together and all investing together, I can afford to do a much larger scale building. And because of that scale, the returns are going to be better, because we benefit from the gains of lower cost per square foot because our trades have a larger scale project to work on. You know, we get purchasing power with materials, and I'm on, let's say I did this on 9 different properties. You know, I'm on just one property, so I've got one set of property taxes, one, you know, the machines are all showing up, the trades are all showing up to one property, and we really get that economies of scale. So the limited partnership agreement is what's allowed me to unlock projects like this, and it can work for you too. It doesn't obviously have to be at this scale. You could just have one of these buildings. You could put a limited partnership agreement to buy one of my buildings. Any building. So each of these is a 12-unit building. We're going to be selling them for let's say average of $400,000 a piece. That puts each building at 4.8 million. Somebody could put together an individual LP to purchase that one of those buildings, and you know, have it as a performing asset. To put the MLI Select program into perspective, if somebody wanted to buy one of these buildings for $4.8 million and they qualified for the full MLI Select program, and you only needed 5% down, that's $350,000. So you would only need $350,000 liquid to purchase a $4.8 million asset.
Mhm.
And I think it's going to have an incredible impact on the market, and I think we're going to see a lot of purpose-built rentals that are going to have construction starts again because of it, or old
So
building.
you had mentioned also that this is going to be set up as a condominium corp, right? So as
Correct.
far as, let's just say let's say I wanted to buy one of these buildings, right? And I got my own LP going, and I have to factor in, property management, maintenance, exterior maintenance, things like this, building exterior maintenance. Is that factored into the condo fees?
The condo fees themselves are factored in. The exterior maintenance is factored into the condo fees. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Management's a whole other.
You would have to set up a management corporation to run your particular building when it comes to, your tenants, let's say, and any costs associated with the management of your tenants.
Yeah.
But the condo would cover snow removal on the roads, grass cutting, all of the common elements, as well as deferred maintenance and reserve funds for the roof and the windows and the exterior of the buildings.
Great, makes sense.
We have just launched this project. The second round of investment for this project. You just happen to be, having this training in the same week as we launched the second round. So if anyone's interested in seeing the intricacies of my offering and how to invest, contact me directly. Lucas, give me a call for sure. The rest of you, I haven't heard from you in a little bit, but I hope you also do. I know Furkan, you've been waiting for that for a while, so it's time for us to get together. We just launched the second round this week, and I'm looking forward to talking to everybody about it. And we do have finder's fees. If any of you bring other investors to the table, we have finder's fees. This is being recorded, so I'm not going to announce it right now. It's somewhat private matter, but reach out to me directly anytime, and it's worthwhile even for you guys to bring people to the table for my LPs. So this is going to be a larger scale project. So there may be more limited partners than I'm used to within the partnership, but we're scaled up and ready for it, and you know we've got good reporting structure and a good track record, so everybody's going to be satisfied participating. That's for sure. Does anybody else have? I'm always long-winded, and I I'm not watching the clock, but as I look at it, we're kind of nearing the hour, which is what's most tolerable for people. So, does anybody have any more questions about the process or the limited partnership agreement specifically before we part ways and move on?
I guess I'll ask you another one that I was thinking of. So
Please
I know
do.
it's quite a process from start to finish. Now, are you going out and hunting for these parcels of land and going through the entire process of actually like getting a site plan approval and all these things done before you're creating your LPs?
Yes.
Or yes? Okay, so that's quite a bit of money and time invested in
Now,
itself, right?
I don't necessarily take on all the liability. I will put it under a conditional period. So some of these large scale land purchases, I will take 6 months on a conditional period, and that I know, and I'll put in some due diligence clauses that allows me to investigate the property for anything from zoning to geotechnical, environmental, and economic feasibility, which you know the LP would fall under. So I tie it up
Mhm.
for, let's say, 6 months. I've got my own capital in as a deposit that is returned if I back out within my conditional period, and I'll take that time to seek my investors and
Mhm.
figure out the appetite for the particular LP. Um, so
Smart.
it doesn't have to be as risky as I purchased the land and now I just have to do it. I'm always going to protect myself and any of my partners that are in with me from the beginning, and make sure that we're not buying a piece of land that we can't do what is intended on it. So I'll set it
Yeah.
up in a conditional period, and I'll do all my homework. I'll build my pro formas, and I'll figure it out during that conditional period. I will spend money on the land. Depending on the due diligence that I have ahead of me, I may be doing geotechnical analysis. I may be doing all sorts of different things. So I typically have myself and maybe one or two other key partners that maybe I like and trust, or maybe it's just me and I'm spending personal money or a smaller amount of money to do this investigation. And willing to, if I find obviously that it's not feasible, I don't mind walking away from a little bit of prospecting money, so to speak.
Yeah.
But typically in that same due diligence phase, I'm doing the things first that don't really cost money. I'm doing first and foremost like a pre-consultation with the municipality to understand their perspective and what needs to be done to apply for a site plan. And then some of the other first steps are hiring my planner right away to create a site plan and plotting on a survey exactly what I can fit on the property, how it will be outlined, to understand the scale, and then start building the numbers backwards from that, and how it's gonna profit. Do my analysis on uh, sale prices of the area, if these are condos to be sold, or rental rates for an area if they're apartments,
Mhm.
and just building it from there.
Yeah, makes sense. I'd love to see some of your stuff, so I'll be in touch.
Call me. For those of you who don't know how to get a hold of me directly, you can call up Metro City. Um, Give me a shout directly if you want. There's only actually some of you are on my team, you know how to get a hold of me, but um, Lucas, and any of you really, give me a call anytime. I'm not hard to find, and either Metro City or Northern Alliance, you'll get to me pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris, for your insights and knowledge, man. Always
Anytime,
appreciate it.
anytime. All right, are my Kingston gang, Kendra and Sarah, you guys still with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we managed to get through that. Hopefully, it wasn't too dry. I could be long-winded, but thanks for participating. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it was really
thank you.
interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, nobody has any more questions before we all blast out and go into realty and make some money together?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Everybody have a great day, and thanks again for joining. Looking forward to seeing you next time.